Joining me in Edmonton, Alberta at BreakForth, Canada is Judy Peterson. She is the campus pastor at North Park University in Chicago. She's also affectionately known around the world as the walking pastor and has this incredible desire to communicate the gospel truth into everyday language. Her day-by-day desire is to walk into the lives of people. Judy, welcome to 100 Huntley Street.
Great to be here.
So help me understand, you got this title, Walking Pastor. How did that happen?
Well, a lot of years ago, I had the opportunity to spend a whole year of my life walking across the United States. So I walked from the Pacific to the Atlantic, about 4,200 miles, 11 pairs of shoes.
Literally coast to coast.
Coast to coast. Yep, I walked every step of it. I made a commitment that I wouldn't cheat and take rides, and so I spent a year of my life doing that. I did it for my internship for seminary, and so when I was studying to be a pastor, most of my friends were not followers of Jesus, and they didn't care so much whether or not the gospel was true, but they wanted to know whether it worked. And to be honest, as a white middle-class woman with a credit card, there hadn't been that many times when I had to lean hard on Jesus for my practical life. And so I had been praying about my internship, and one day I sat in a chair and I prayed for a long time, which is actually kind of rare for me, and I got up feeling guilty about all the time I'd spent when there was so much to do, and I felt the Holy Spirit said, God said to me, like, if you don't know how to be with me, you have no business doing anything for me. And I realized, man, it's really easy to be a doer that doesn't know how to be, even in the church. And so I said, God, I would do anything to know what it is to be with you, and God's kind of into anything. So months later, as I was eating pizza with my boyfriend, who's now my husband, I said, I'm so tired of doing Christian things. I want to be with God. I'm going to walk across America. It wasn't anything I had ever thought of before. I hadn't read a book about it, but there was something in it when I said it that it seemed like it had a volume or like a real existence. And I went to a professor the next day and I said, do you think God could ask someone to walk across America? And he said, yeah, I think God's asking you. I'm like, you do? Like not a state or a county? And he said, no, I think the whole thing. And so I ended up submitting it for an internship for my master's degree.
Now, so the walk, the purpose of the walk, you must have some incredible stories as well. So the purpose behind it, and is there something memorable that sticks out to you in your mind?
Well, I think the purpose was really I wanted to learn how to walk with God and not just people who know God. And I think we tend to get most of our information about God through a secondary source.
Okay.
And I really wanted to know what did it look like to learn how to listen long rather than have short sound bites. Right. And I wanted to learn how to walk with whoever God put in my path without me choosing whom I had a preference for, which I think is also a habit. We tend to collect the people that we like around us, and what does it look like to just submit yourself to whoever pulls over on the side of the road? And so I definitely had some funny experiences with who God selected to put on the side of the road. I'm thinking of one time there was, actually towards the beginning, 300 or 400 miles, maybe 300 miles in, I had been walking, I carried a backpack and I planned to camp. But there was a woman who came to my campground in the morning, and she pulled up. It had been raining all night, and she rolled down the window of her car and she said, Judy, come, I want to help you. And I didn't know anybody in Washington, so I opened my little tent, and she's like, I have an Egg McMuffin. Perfect, I said. I will let you help me. So I got in her car. Her name was Tuesday. She had a cat named Wednesday. It was Thursday. This is how I knew it was from Jesus. And she said, I want to help you walk across the United States, but I've never helped a woman walking across. How can I help you? And I said, well, I have no idea. I've never walked across America. And even in my everyday life, when people want to help, I generally say no. And even with God, I say, oh, I know you want to help me. Let me save you the trip. I'll work harder. And she's like, well, let's figure it out together. So she began to help me find places to stay. And so in 369 nights, I only camped out 4 nights. Every other night, somebody that I would meet along the way would take me into their home. Yeah. And so really the walk, I mean, I put one foot in front of the other, but the amazing story is really people. Yeah. People are way more awesome than we give them credit for.
So let's say you got a student who comes and says, Pastor Judy, I've heard all the arguments.
Yeah.
Jesus, how do you know he's real? What would you say?
I would say Jesus showed up in my life. Is that I was doing everything you could think of to just live in the world in my early 20s. And I was having fun. I mean, this is like, I know a lot of people tell their like party years is some sort of tragic thing. I made great friends. I had a lot of fun, but it was messy. I was not unaware this was messy. I had a friend that invited me to go to a Bible study. I was like, yeah, not that interested. And she was relentless, and she invited maybe 30 times. Eventually, I went to this Bible study. It was the quirkiest group of weird people I'd ever met in my life. I'm like, these are not my friends. And but they were so awesome. I was so messy. I did everything to shock them I could think of, and they just kind of were like nonplussed by it. They eventually said, you should come to church. And I was a cocktail waitress, bartender at the time. And I was like, well, I can do the whole Bible study thing, but I work. It's a 4 a.m. bar. I don't get home till 6:30. I'm not going to church on Sunday. But one day I got off my shift, and I don't know. I mean, this is where you wonder how God works in people's lives. But there was such a strong pull that I have to go. I have to go to church today. I remember it was when you could still smoke in bars. And so I, there's an aroma. And I showered twice, and I got dressed, and I went to church, and I sat in the back row because I really felt uncomfortable. It's not my space. And I closed my eyes, kind of the childhood thing. If I can't see them, maybe they can't see me. And I had a vision, and it's all I can tell you is that I had a vision. And Jesus walked towards me, and he came and stood next to me, and he said, will you dance with me? And I said, I don't think we dance the same. Kind of a club person at the time. And Jesus just said the same thing again. Judy, will you dance with me? And I was more honest the second time. I don't know how to dance like you dance. And then he said this most tender thing. He said, you could stand on my shoes. And my dad left when I was really young. And I think if that sort of like moment of intimacy with someone who would actually teach you was such a tender moment. And so I risked it in this vision. I put my feet on Jesus' feet, and I began to hear in my head, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But I've never ballroom danced or anything. And but this was the rhythm of it, and it was so beautiful. I was dancing with Jesus, and I was like, I want this to go on forever. And then Jesus said, look at me, and I panicked. Because one thing I know is you should leave before you're found out. If people know you, they might reject you. And so I tried to wrestle away from Jesus, but he just held tighter. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And Judy, look at me. And I was like, I can't. I'm afraid you'll put me back down. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And I just felt him lift my chin. And I looked up into his face. And in his eyes, I could see a reflection of me. An absolute honest assessment. What a mess. And he said so clearly, but you are beautiful to me. And the dance just continued. And I left that church, not because of what a pastor said, not because of the right revelation in a Bible or anything. I left that church wanting to walk with Jesus because I encountered him in a way that healed something so deep in me I've never been the same.
From that day forward.
From that day forward, everything. People will tell you, I mean, it took me like a week to break up with my boyfriend, and it took me like 4 months to quit bartending and move to just waiting tables. I mean, change isn't overnight, but the trajectory was set from that point that I wanted to be transformed into someone that knew these steps.
What an amazing opportunity that God gave you to meet Jesus, that actually changed your life. That's incredible. And if you're watching and you can relate with Judy, we encourage you, please call the number on your screen. There's prayer partners there that would love to talk with you and pray with you and introduce you to the Jesus that Judy met. Judy, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your story in 100 Huntley Street.
Great to be
God bless you.
Thank you.